Greetings. I didn't think I was going to be able to go live today or that I even wanted to. I've had one hell of a day here. Yesterday, our internet went down. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had the people coming in and out today. And I'm ashamed to say that I stupidly picked up my router to reboot it and didn't even realize there was a little tiny hidden button I'd hit that shuts down all internet traffic. It doesn't reboot the router, it doesn't do anything, it just shuts it down. Hey, nitwit. So it was a fruitless morning. My cat got on my computer and added a bunch of crap to the almost finished book. So it was one thing after another going down all day and all day yesterday. And it was like, what is going on here? Is this whatever? So here I am. I'm making Christmas fudge since I forgot to do it before Christmas. Oh, that sounds delicious. I don't have Christmas fudge, but I have something that to me, if I can find it. What did I do with it? I must have stuck it in the freezer already. I was going to show off my delicious, delicious asthma med I bought yesterday, and I don't know what I did with it. Great. This would just be the topper of the week. Ah, it's my grandma's recipe. Where are you? Bring the evaporated milk and sugar to a boil and boil it for 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to have to do that eventually. Unfortunately, I got this instead, which is smaller than usual. So I have to divide it up into 8 pieces for asthma treatment. So I haven't evaporated milk. I actually get here. Sweetened condensed milk you can get here. You can even get the sweetened condensed milk in the can that has been boiled, and it makes what do we call that stuff? It makes like a caramel. We can get that already pre-boiled here, and I like that. But what I don't like about here is you cannot get anything that is remotely like whipping cream. It just doesn't exist here, and I've tried everything. And some of the whipping creams that people use here aren't whipped cream. Sometimes you can take evaporated milk and chill it to like almost 35 degrees and then pour it into a ice cold stainless bowl and whip it and make a kind of a faux whipped cream. So I do that here, but no Cool Whip, no whipped cream in a can, no whipped cream to whip into making, none of that. It just doesn't exist here. It's not part of it's not part of what they got going on. And it's kind of funny because if you go someplace and they offer you a drink or a dessert with chantilly on it, they'll tell you that's whipped cream. But chantilly is not really whipped cream. I don't know what it is. It's some faux whipped cream. It's not whipped cream like. So there's my rant. I've just been all over the place. And when the internet went out, it was like, oh, what else? What next? It's a long story short. Here I am. This morning, when I finally got the internet back, and you should have heard me speaking in Spanish to the guy, giving him directions here. Like, I couldn't get him to understand where he's supposed to be. So finally, I told him the name of the house of ill repute we live not too far from. As soon as I said the name of that place, he was like, okay, yeah, I know where that's at. And it's like, go past it, hang a left on the main road. If you go to the airport, you've gone too far. So that was kind of funny. And so when I finally came back on, I saw that without a crystal ball, involved with Robert Shinn and 7M and Shekinah Church that had decoded the sandwich. So I need to talk about that, but I need to give my little disclaimers first. If you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Dinkelmeyer. I used to write for Pathos for 10 years. Wrote a column called No Longer Quivering. These are just my opinions. Don't bully anybody I'm about to talk about. Don't bully Robert Shinn. dear Catherine, who I'm really not going to talk about, but this is about her. It's just not about her. And that's about it. So Robert Shinn apparently has been calling Miss Catherine a sandwich. And we were all very, very, very confused by that, some of us. And I know what a sandwich, two pieces of bread, something in between it. And Catherine seized upon it and started saying, oh, like a Jimmy John sub. Well, I was joking around with it and said, no, more like that leftover peanut butter sandwich in your school lunchbox that you leave sitting in your locker for 3 months. And then when you pull it out, it's all mangled and mushy and moldy. So I was kind of bitchy about it, I admit. And so kind of left it at that. But without crystal balls this morning, had heard from somebody who said that Robert's labeling of her as a sandwich, you were supposed to divide it in half. Sandwich. As in witches, warlocks, and all that stupidity. Now, here's where I take exception with that. And I know about this because I've been writing about the same crap. This is the same crap that went on in my old church. Demonic oppression. They all talk about it. And that is my understanding of what's going on with Robert Shinn labeling her that. In a lot of these churches, like Bethel, like Hillsong, like so many of them that I've been to, that I've heard of, they blame stuff on the devil and on possession that, please, we don't even have to invoke possession by the devil. We can do bad all by ourselves. So I've been watching my entire faith journey, people doing that. I've talked a number of times about the time we went through deliverance ministry, because that's what they try to do. They try to bring you through deliverance ministry for this crap. And some of the stuff that's being said and that's being passed along makes me think that behind the scenes, it's the Shekinah, well, the troll that shall not be named has referenced herself as Satan's mouthpiece. Well, they don't think she's Satan's mouthpiece. They think she's Satan or part Satan or some minor capering imp or demon. In that type of church, and in my old church, blaming stuff on demons was just, to me, it was ridiculous. I was sitting there jaw dropped at how many times they did that. Can't get a parking space in the store, it's a demon. Somebody else opposing you in some minor way, that's a demon. They're demon-addled. Every little thing is a demon. Please. If that was true, Satan would be busier than that one-legged man at a butt-kicking contest, if that was all true. So many times I saw this in the past where everything was blamed on demons and demonic possession and demonic oppression and all of that. I think the craziest ones I've ever seen blamed on that was a boy who blamed his 14-year-old boy. It is a cop-out. It's a terrible cop-out because it makes you not take any personal responsibility for your own wrong behavior, and some of it is wrong behavior, or for your body or anything going on. Like I said, there was enormous pressure put on me not to use legitimate medications. And I sometimes would bow to that, and I've made myself worse as a result. Not because I thought I had demon or was given into demons or anything like that, or giving glory to Satan. I just didn't want the hassle of having everybody land on my doorstep and try to pray me in or whatever. No wonder Josh W. uses Linux. It's full of that is a good one, Java man. So this is that. Let's just throw out any personal responsibility for anything we might say or do. And I hate that. That's one of the things I absolutely think that needs to just die in the evangelical church is this: let's blame Satan for everything. Let's call everything a demon. And some of it is some pretty just out there, you know what? We had a 14-year-old kid, and I've told the story before on the channel. He got up and talked about his difficulties with masturbation, okay, at a conference, and he blamed it on Satan. He called it Satan. It was Satan tempting him, Satan making him self-abuse, Satan, Satan, Satan. And Jesus had delivered him from that. And I was sitting there listening to that, going, making faces, because even then I was a believer in science. I was thinking, that poor kid, he's perfectly normal. Every 14-year-old boy is obsessed with his penis. It's just part of what happens when you go through puberty and you start having all that stuff going on. But if you blame Satan and you take no responsibility, you don't know what's going on in your body is normal, you get Josh Duggars eventually. You get people that struggle with some form of sexuality the rest of their lives. Either something as innocent as being into women's feet, or all the way to the weird stuff Josh is into. It just becomes a problem when you demonize something that's normal. And I saw that time and time again in my old church. More than once, I was told that I did. Well, like I was telling somebody, if I was really demon-addled, don't you think that demon would make me wildly successful? Don't you think it would give me charm? It would give me all the stuff that I need to succeed, because God knows I didn't have none of that. I got none of that. The problem with Christianity, a lot of evangelical, non-denominational churches, is that when you get saved and you're a bit part of it, you start experiencing main character syndrome. Now, what is main character syndrome? Main character syndrome is the belief that only you can fix something. So when they get you into the kingdom, they start telling you you have a special role that only you can fill. It is the kind of coercive control that CULTs practice with their people. They take over your brain, and it shuts down all critical thinking when you become the main character in your own story, a legend in your own mind. It's exactly what it is, but it's like the Christian version, and not even the normal Christian version, but this some out there one. I knew somebody at our old church, and I've written about this in my book too, who he decided, after watching a movie about missionaries in Brazil back in the 1800s, he decided he was supposed to be a missionary in Brazil. So he, his wife, who happened to be like 7 months pregnant at the time, they picked up a safety pin. Yes, a safety pin and a map of Brazil. And they turned themselves around, they spun their little safety pin, and they tossed it at the map to see where God wanted them to minister. It hit a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere. They said, well, okay, we're going there. So they got on the plane, and that's what they did. They flew down to Brazil. They took the bus to that little teeny tiny town, and they got off. No plans, no rental car, no hotel room, no nothing. They just did that. And said, oh, we're so spiritual. We're so spiritual. We're hearing from God every second, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying you can't hear from God, because I believe you can, but I believe it's more like the still small voice than other than watching a movie going, oh, yeah, that's where I'm supposed to go. I mean, that could happen, but the way this went down, it set so poorly with me. I watched this unfold. So they met some Christians in the town square that put them in touch with a Christian missionary group that they went and stayed with them for the week before they flew back. And at least they didn't hit the middle of the ocean. They would have been looking for the nearest island, I'm sure. So they went and they ministered that week, or they said they ministered. I don't know. And here we are. It's 45, 50 years later. And after listening to them talk about this for years and years and years and years and years, and they're still talking about it, they have not been able to raise the funds to return to this little tiny village and minister there. Neither one of them. That is like the high point. That is the part of their video, their main character syndrome, and they dine on that forever. And there's tragic outcomes to that trip because the wife, like I said, she was 7 months pregnant when all this went down. I believe she must have contracted something while she was there because I'm going to be real honest with you, even here where we have modern medicine, there are things that you can contract that you may not even know you have. Chikungunya is one of them, the mosquito-borne illness that can affect your heart and stuff, and you won't even know you have it for ages. Malaria, there's so many different things. Well, tragically, 2 months later, she gave birth to a boy. Not that that was the tragedy. The tragedy is he was not normal. In the bad old days, we used to say mental retardation. Now they use phrases like developmentally disabled. I don't know which one is more appropriate or accurate, but they're both pretty awful if you ask me. So this boy functions at about the level of maybe a year-old child, and he's in his 40s now. And talking to the sister-in-law, she is convinced that something was contracted by this lady in Brazil that did this to the child. They had many more children and they were all normal. This was the only one that was not normal. And they, like I said, they've never returned. They've never raised the funds to return. I've watched them. Their entire lives have been a circle of chaos from beginning to end. Fortunately, they're not friends of mine anymore, and I don't have anything to do with them. And I sometimes will creep on Facebook and say, yeah, let's see what's going on with the whatever family. And there they are. So this main character syndrome, it drives some of this dramatic stuff like demons. Let's put our hands on these people. Let's pray the demons off of them. You know, this is why the Catholic Church does not accept everything as a demon. They actually have a process you have to go through to be declared under demonic oppression. And there's wisdom in that. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And I also sometimes wonder with people who claim demonic oppression that if it's not some form of mental illness going on. I've always wondered that. And I'm sorry. So I think that's what's going on. When Robert Shinn first appeared on the scene after Dear Catherine started talking about him, I was kind of like, okay, because he started friending a lot of us under a lot of different names. Okay. And he had a lot of different Instagram names, Twitter names, that sort of thing. Either him or his followers. And they started friending us. The second I realized that his church, Shekinah, was linked with Bethel, it was linked with Hillsong, it was linked with a whole pile of other ones, I was like, nope, I'm out of here. And I immediately blocked him. I mean, I blocked him across the board. For me, the fight at that point became like the fight between two different sides where you're looking at it going, I really don't care who wins. Pass the popcorn. For me, that's when it became pass the popcorn. While I don't want anything bad to happen to Catherine's son or her husband, and part of me would like to see her face legal justice for some of the things she said and done. I'm not sure I'm not going to be happy with it being Robert Shinn. Like I said, because of the fact that everything I know about those kinds of non-denominational churches, everything I know about them, they're not the CULT that she calls them, but let's just say they are high demand religious organizations that make you jump through the hoops, that keep you busy, that keep you non-thinking, that lead you to believe that you are the main character in your story. Are you the main character in your own story? I am not. I am lesser in a lot of ways, I think. I've been thinking about this a lot. And today I had to really put in place a really big boundary for myself. Because the family members I have in Louisiana who are not drunken idiots, who are not alcoholics, Cajun alcoholics, they attend churches like Shekinah. So this morning, I got another phone call from another relative in South Louisiana about my upcoming trip. And I was crying after just a few minutes. My poor husband is watching me cry for the last 3 months off and on about my mother and the family and the things that are said to me and just everything that is going on. And I had to decide today that for me, no more. It's not enough to just block the Robert Shinns of this world. I'm blocking friends and family that are involved in this nonsense because they keep trying to push the guilt button and drag me back into this. That ship has sailed. Every time that I've looked at something that has been, quote, demons or, quote, angels, I'm looking at that now like, guys, you're playing games. And I'm going to venture to say that God is way different than what any of them could ever imagine. And it's going to be a shocker one of these days for them, I think. It's not demons. It's our own stupidity most of the time. And God knows I am just as bad about it. I was telling this caller today, I woke up this morning having had a nightmare, and I am pretty sure that it had to do with all the stress I've been under with my husband's health, my health, various things. And then this added on. The actual biblical description of some angels is extremely weird. Not only is it extremely weird, it's extremely terrifying, some of them. Have you read the descriptions with the wings on fire, the red wings with the eyeballs and things? It's like, I don't want to see that. If I saw that, I would run away screaming. I don't know about you guys. That's a long way from seeing gold dust falling from the sky. That's a long way from any of the weird little things, the non-denominational, quiverful, evangelical, fundamentalism, charismatic movement. It's way different when you read the Bible than what they're actually preaching. And some of the descriptions of the things are very, very different. And I talked to another relative later, an aunt, and she was telling me why she doesn't engage in politics in any way, shape, or form. And I think she's probably really smart about that. She was telling me that she knows enough about the history of England to ever think that one should ever, if one is largely powerless, like a lot of us are, and I admit I'm one of those, that this kindest thing you can do is just kind of keep your thoughts to yourself on that and vote as you will. I'm going to that. I'm no longer going to be speaking out about politics in any way, shape, or form, no matter what happens. Now, we'll be still going to protest like I did before I left. But I just don't see any point in a lot of the things that are being driven right now in non-denominational Christianity and evangelicalhood, because it's just gotten stranger and stranger all the time. I'm not playing that game any longer. For me, that has ended. So when these guys pop up, I hit block every time now because I just don't. And don't get me wrong, I have a nice assortment of Christian friends who get it, who understand that most Christians are playing some kind of weird game. And they're also main characters. They're playing main character syndrome. They think that they're the main character of everything. Everything revolves around them. That they're singing the song instead of, it's not about me, it's about you, Jesus. They're singing, it's all about me, Jesus. You should do things my way. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. So whenever I see these kinds of churches and their nonsense, I'm just like, no. So as soon as I heard about sandwiches, I was just like, oh, brother, please, not again. This crapola, Jesus. It's just exhausting. It's ridiculously mentally exhausting. So that leads me to the other thing I wanted to talk about. Now that you've got to hear me rant about Robert Shinn's idiotic name for Catherine, and this is not me talking shit at all about Catherine, but about the stupid games evangelicals play, non-denominational evangelicals. The stupid games people play. The other stupid game I wanted to talk about is Bill Gothard. Bill Gothard has his own version of stupid game. Now, you may remember a couple of months ago, I mentioned Bill Gothard since he got tossed from the IBLP ATI. There's also an ongoing debate as to whether a hot dog is a sandwich or not. Man, I'm from Louisiana, so I'm willing to give anything that's slapped between bread a pass as sandwiches. But what do I know? I come from a culture that actually has a sandwich we make out of French fries between white bread. Go figure. I like poutine better than that. And I got to throw out a culinary tip before I rant about Bill Gothard. Today I had something I have never had before. I've only read about it. And this is the nice thing about being here. The Automercado carries foods from around the world. I got some Wensleydale cheese from England, and I had it on banana muffin bread I made because they talk about how they have their fruitcake with their cheese on it. And let me tell you something, it was out of this world. I have to go back and buy that stuff, even if it's super expensive. I can see that's going to be one of my favorites. So, and I'm not going to call that a sandwich. Well, maybe if I took 2 pieces of banana, of the blueberry muffin bread and stuck the cheese in the middle, I might call it a sandwich. Bill Gothard, like I said, he got kicked out of the IBLP. Let's see if I can pull up the graphic that I snatched from Ryan Stoller's Twitter feed. Okay, if you don't know who Ryan Stoller is, he was somebody that I was friendly with and that I interacted with through No Longer Quivering for a while. He got burned out and left, like a lot of us do, from helping people, because that stuff happens. It just does. You get incredibly burned out from the constant attempts to help others and to have debates of what other things are. One of the things that happened that was bad in the quiverful movement, especially the actual, not quiverful movement, the exiting movement, the deconversion movement, was they had the second gen young adults who I was not part of. I was a mother and I was like first gen. The second gen and the first gen had a huge falling out. And then I got to watch the second gen spin around and kick more and more people out and just drill down on what pure was. I knew Ryan because he had a website. What was the name of his website? Yeah, Homeschoolers Anonymous. I had to think about it a minute. And eventually, in one of those rounds where they were swirling around and calling people impure and kicking you out for not having a hard enough heart for this stuff, I mean, not having a pure enough theology, because they have their own theology, even though it isn't Christian in any way, shape, or form. They finally kicked him out too. I got kicked out, but I didn't really care because the person who was trying to kick me out was someone that was a very petty and awful person. And I don't see her around anymore. So I think she's probably had a comeuppance, and she's destroyed some communities in the meantime. So anyway, he had this thing today from Bill Gothard's website, from the workbooks. Bill Gothard has a new thing. They kicked him out of the ATI IBLP because he was accused of some things with young women. And there were over 40 grown women who stepped forward and said he had groomed them as teenagers when they were working at the place, and they were doing their hair like he wanted. They were wearing the outfits. I got to say, the first time that I saw the IBLP, the girls that were connected to that, back when I was part of my church, I thought, ooh, this looks rather cult like. They all had that Duggar girl swirly perm thing going on. They were all wearing white blouses and like navy blue skirts. It was just creepy looking. Oh, fudge is done. Well, Nitwit, thank you, but I'm going to have to make some after hearing you talk about it. I can get the ingredients for that here. The only problem is we're trying not to eat sweets right now, which is going to make this problematic, except this is just for asthma, so it's going to get cut up into like 10 pieces or 8 pieces and froze. So I've been eating some gross things like a sugar-free chocolate bar that is made entirely of quinoa, and the sugar is not real sugar. So every now and then when I'm flipping out, I got some sweet. I have one of those. I'm like, ugh, I don't want anything sweet for a while. So it's kind of faux, like Bill Gothard's religion is faux. You know what you want. You know you want the real thing. But somehow you get brainwashed into having some of those things that has the artificial sugar in it, and you're just gagging because it's not quite what you want. So Bill Gothard, since he's been kicked out, I've been interested in see what he was going to do. Hey, Grace Peter. So what he's done is he's started Embassy University, and basically it's workbooks. Right before bedtime, you pray, you read the chapter in the workbook. It's a good idea. Maybe I will make it. I should be back here by then, I hope. You work through the thing in the workbooks. You pray that God would enlighten you in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. And then you go to bed. And you can work your way through the Bible from what he calls an associate degree all the way through a PhD. Now, these are not accredited in any way, shape, or form. None of this transfers. This is just his own thing he's invented. Hey, Brooklyn, like so many of these guys, they come up with a new way to make money all the damn time. And a lot of times it involves some kind of coursework that is not anything you can use in the real world. So Ryan Stoller shared this page today on Twitter, and I just looked, and I got to read you this page. This page is one of the grossest things I've ever read. And you know me, you know I'm a feminist. I'm all about empowering women to do better and for women to realize their power. Yeah, I know. I take after dear Catherine and the occasional drinking and driving hijinks of Michelle. But other than that, I usually am pretty light on women. I don't give them as much crap as I've given men. Okay, the article's called 4 Sources of a Woman's Thoughts. So right off the bat with this thing, he is making me feel very angry just from the title, because I know it's about to be stupid, and quickly it is. A depressed husband said, "My wife wants a divorce." He was told to call her and say, "I would like to pray now for our marriage." After he prayed, she had a totally different outlook. Women think differently than men. If a husband does not understand this, he will have many needless and damaging arguments with his wife and daughters. Women, he's got a women, not a woman. Women, big typo, will speak from 4 logic-tight mental compartments and may give contradictory statements, which will frustrate her husband. That wife spoke from her emotions, which changed after the prayer. Horse hockey. I was raised Southern Baptist, and they were a CULT. Grew up in fear. Most of these places have extreme fears. We were sent with grown-ups to Bible witness at strangers' homes. I think that's what it's called. I hated the way I was raised. They also call it soul winning. There's a bunch of different terms that they come up with for that. But so many churches require that, and it's terrible. It's traumatic for people, for some people. I would have a problem with it. And it's intrusive, very intrusive. I've knocked heads with some of those people, even when I was a believer, because I don't believe that's the way to go about it. That's just my opinion. That and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, unless they've raised their prices since I was there this summer. I find this just insulting when they start saying that women are not logical. I'm going to read you these, and here's what I have to say about men and women's thinking. Women overthink all the time. I'm convinced of it. Most women overthink. Not all of them, but some of us do. And I'd even venture to say probably most of us. Like if your husband said something to you, about anything, you might be thinking about it and going, what did he mean by that? Is he being honest? You know, you might overthink it in 50,000 trillion different ways. And to my everlasting shame, I did one of the meanest things I've ever done in my life. When I was a member of my old church, I was working with a gal whose husband sent her 24 red roses in the middle of the day. And she was bragging on it. And I said, what did he do wrong? And I implanted that in her brain. So she spent the rest of the day worrying about this until by the end of the day, she was almost rabid, going, I'm going to kill him. I know he's thinking about this or this and this. And I was like, ooh, what did I start? So that was just wrong. Starbucks said they will allow customers to pay in Bitcoin. So would one Bitcoin be a fair price? Now that is a volatile market, and that's a whole different subject. Guilty as charged. My thought train is always leaving the station full. Mine is too. My father went off the deep end. He took our TV outside and shot a hole in it. Then knocked on neighbors' doors and wanted to shoot their TVs because it's evil. I've heard and seen that. I've had people virtue signal in front of me saying how much holier they were because they killed their TVs. We kept our TV, just the one, but I was not about to throw away TV because there are some things on it that aren't so bad, and even in those days. So, men, while we might be overthinking and going, what did he mean by that? What is that about? Yours hasn't been on in years. I just watch stuff that I like Breaking Bad or Mad Men, that sort of thing. I tend to watch certain things, and I like good fiction. I just always have. And documentaries. So the husband, whenever he said what it was he was thinking that. He wasn't thinking all the crap the wife was saying or thinking that he thought. So he is right that men and women do think differently. But I think it's the tilt is not emotional and unemotional, illogical, logical. I think that the tilt is simple thoughts, complex thoughts about everything. Not to say men can't have complex thoughts, because clearly they do. But I think that men are far more straightforward in their thinking and how they approach life in some ways compared to we women who think about everything. Okay, so number one on this stupid thing, a woman will speak from her mind. Mind is M-I-N-D, capital letters. The mind of a woman receives data from her 5 senses, taste, touch, sight, sound, and smell. She will process this information in her head brain and speak accordingly. Since this data is constantly changing, she will often change her mind. A woman tends to believe what she hears and makes decisions that are unwise. Eve is an example of using her head brain to respond to what she saw and heard. Huh? Okay, let's look at this. Head brain. So you change your knowledge. When you change your knowledge, you change your thought pattern. You change what you think and believe. That's not limited to women, dude. That is men too. Say, this is a bad illustration, but it's the only one I can think of on the fly. Bobby Boucher in the movie The Water Boy. The Water Boy. Going to biology class, and the professor said, he's talking about the Abdullah oblongata of alligators, which are plentiful in Louisiana. And Bobby Boucher spoke up with, Mama says alligators are ornery, and I forgot why he said they were ornery, but it was something like, have all them teeth, no toothbrush. That was it. And the professor was just like, so before the end, Bobby had learned that why alligators why their brains were different and what that actually meant. So when he changed his information input to not just his mama, he had to change what he believed about it, which we all have to do that. It's not even a man-woman thing. You're from Belle Chase. Oh my goodness. I have family around Ponchatoula and Bayou Manchac. Okay, that's where my family is from initially. So now I have family from south of New Orleans all the way up to north of Baton Rouge. And that's where I'm going soon, is Baton Rouge, to try and figure out what to do about my poor old mama. So his first idea that women change their mind when they get information is so stupid as to be unbelievable. Men do that too. We all do that. That's just how education works. And I don't know about you guys, but I try to be a lifetime learner. I try to learn something every day. And today I learned that Wensleydale cheese on fruit bread was delicious. I don't know why I haven't tried it before. 62 years old, I'm just finding out about this. But at least I'm learning something. And before we moved here, I was always taking free coursework or inexpensive stuff like master gardening, all kinds of different programs, just to learn something. Because if you don't use your brain, guess what? That thing won't work right. So let's look at number 2. I think that one's ridiculous. Number 2, a woman will speak from her emotions. Men have emotions too, Bill. The emotions of a woman are powerful. They will overcome the logic of her mind and rule her responses to people and situations. A woman is very sensitive and alert to small details, which men overlook. That power of overthinking. I think that's what that is. These will affect her emotions. She also has a strong sense of what is right and wrong and will tend to take up offenses for other people and especially other women. Not my experience, dude. Rachel was offended by her father's mistreatment of her husband and stole her father's idol when she left him. Okay, so the biblical example he's throwing in there. Oh, Gothard has Embassy University, and he's teaching this nonsense through these workbooks. I've got a sheet of the workbook through Ryan Stoller, who posted it on Facebook earlier today. So this is the crap that Billy Bob is teaching. So emotions, we all have emotions. I think women are more closely attuned to their emotions. And some of us let them go a lot sooner. And it may not be pseudobulbar effect making us cry, but something else, or laugh inappropriately. So men are taught, it's a societal thing. They're taught to hold their emotions close, to not show their emotions, put on that poker face, to be a man, be a man, be a man, be a man. But don't let Billy Bob fool you. Many times we have to put on poker faces and not show emotions either. I was thinking about that earlier. I subscribe to Magellan TV. They have great documentaries I watched and research about Bible history. I may have to do that. Right now, I'm using Curiosity Stream, and I love it. Where was I? My brain jumps around. So if he wants to accuse me of that, but that's more adult ADD going on. So the thing with the emotions in men have used the idea that women have emotions. It is new. It's his newest way to make money. It is get all these Bible degrees by studying the workbook right before you go to bed, praying, reading the Bible, and then letting God work his miracle magic while you're sleeping. What do I know? I'm just a silly woman filled with silly emotions. But this idea that men don't have emotions is ridiculous. And our cultural ethos that says men can't show emotions, they have to be stoic, is just one of the most ridiculous and harming things. Boys don't cry. Ridiculous. That was one of the things I was really touched by when Damar Hamlin was injured a week ago tomorrow, was seeing his fellow teammates, some of them openly weeping and not caring. I would like to see Billy Bob Gothard and the rest of the hyper masculinity crew, like John Piper and Tim Bailey, Doug Wilson. He did in classic literature. And there are times when tears are appropriate. And yeah, men are allowed to express their emotions. That's exactly right. You know, that's what's so silly about it, because they used to teach us at our old church, you have to own something before you can disown it. And that's the same thing with your emotions. If your emotions are bothering you, release them and be done with it, instead of hanging on to them forever and having a heart attack because you're like angry. They teach girls they should be subservient. Yes, and this is where I think we're going with this crap too. I think it's going to end up there. Number 3, a woman will speak from her will. Decision making can come from a woman's heart brain or her head brain. I think he's meaning emotions and intellect, but he's not using those words. Since both of these brains are connected, the decisions will be temporary and can change with new information or circumstances. A woman needs to receive wise counseling from a strong spiritual leader. This should be her husband or pastor. Esther made the decision not to make an appeal for the lives of her people. However, her wise uncle gave her counsel that which caused her to change her will. Oh my, I don't even know where to start with this one. First of all, there's no such thing as heart brain, head brain. There's the mind, the intellect. That is housed in here. There's your emotions, also housed in here. Your feelings, all of that, not in here. This thing in here, it goes, it moves the blood around your body. There's no such thing in there as emotions or anything else. And Nancy Campbell seems to think that emotions are lodged in a woman's uterus, which is really ridiculous. If that was only so, at least, when I had my hysterectomy, I could be done with all negative emotions. But no, that part of your body that store emotions. So that's one thing that just makes me crazy about some non-denominational evangelicals that do this high demand religious stuff. They don't have any kind of scientific knowledge. or any of that. And Esther did change what she was going to do. But I don't think it's quite what Billy Boy here is trying to say it is. Number 4, and the final point, a woman will speak from her, quote, spirit. The spirit of a person is located in the gut brain. Oh, so now we have 3 different parts of the body that he's trying to say have brains in them. This is also the location of deep-rooted faith and deep-rooted love. Your gut. It is from this brain that we make decisions for which we will lay down our lives. It is from our gut brain that we become a believer and dedicate our lives to the Lord. It is also this brain that a couple would dedicate their lives to each other in marriage. Ruth made a decision from her gut brain when she said to her mother-in-law, Naomi, where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Ruth 1:16. Jesus commanded us to make all our promises with the full intent to keep them. Matthew 5:37. Well, gee, isn't that just swell and dandy? Now you've got a gut brain, a heart brain, a brain. Now, there are certain functions that the gut does, physical functions, that they're starting to just now uncover. But it's not a brain. It's not a brain in the fact that it can't make decisions or any of that. So there you have it. This is the first one of the few sheets I've seen from Embassy University. So if you waste your time and your money on this, I just don't have any way to. I can't have any respect for anybody that wastes their time with that. It's ridiculous. It runs contrary to science. Ugh. Science. You think I'm, I swear I'm not sniffing Adderall. I'm not eating brownies. I'm not drinking. This is water. I think the base of the spinal column can make certain reflex decisions. Well, blow it out your rear end. Whoever you are, you porn. You porn freak. So there you have it. Billy Boy Gothard doesn't know biology. He doesn't know so many different things. And everything, at least it isn't the foot people this time. That was actually kind of funny. And it took me a little while to catch on to that. I'm kind of slow sometimes. And that was one of those slow moments. One of those what did I drop? I don't know. One of those incredibly slow moments for me was I didn't catch on the fact that they were a bunch of foot fetish people showing up. Oh, goodness. So these people, like I said, their view of the world is childish. It revolves around them. It revolves around them thinking that they are the main character in the entire universe. Main character syndrome, thinking that only they have the particular ability to fix or do something. Starring in their role is mighty woman, mighty man, whatever, Bible man. And I just don't have any patience anymore. I'm getting too old and too cranky for this crap. I think that Whitman cried in Leaves of Grass over the death and destruction he saw in the Civil War. I'm sure he did. And I even want to venture that Ernest Hemingway probably cried at what he saw during the Spanish Civil War. War is hell. That's a reason to cry. There are so many things one might cry over. I've cried over some ridiculous stuff myself, particularly when I'm taking steroids. One time I cried over the Poseidon adventure, and I'd already seen it. I already knew the boat flipped over. So all of his codswallop about emotion, it just makes me laugh the hardest because so many of these biblical patriarchy dudes are like very like petty, tin-plated dictators. The minute you say, hey, that's not right, they flip out. I'm going to end with a story about NLQ. One time, I wrote an article about something Tim Bailey had said. It might have been something about his very weird views on masculinity. At the time, he was saying that skinny jeans were not masculine enough, beards weren't masculine enough. He had all these ridiculous things he was saying were not masculine enough, drinking a latte. And I was just blown away because it was all ridiculous stuff that has nothing to do with masculinity. He's beating his masculinity drums to the point where I start to wonder if maybe he was the one struggling with his masculinity and his own sexuality. And I said that. He didn't contact me and say, take that down, Miss Libel. What he did was he went to my editor, and said, this woman is clearly libeling me. And my editor was like, did you or did you not say those things? Yes, but I didn't mean them in that context. Well, he went round and round and round with my editor 4 or 5 times, and my editor blocked him. I blocked him. The editor blocked him. Higher ups at Patheos blocked him, if I recall correctly. So what kind of tired, scared, bizarre masculinity does that look like? It's the kind of masculinity that has to invent this wild crap about women in order to feel better about themselves. I just don't get it. I love men. But I love men that give me the freedom to do what I need to do. My husband is a wonderful guy because he does that. He always gives me the freedom to do what I want to do. Now, he's driving me crazy about my book and some of the stuff that I'm involved in right now, trying to get the website up and stuff, because he is curious now. And he has certainly made me remember things. He's also pointed out to me that there are some stories in my book that I'm going to have to go back and rewrite slightly to prevent the people that I'm talking about from figuring out. Because he said, I don't want anyone showing up here in Culpeper. That's where I used to live. Showing up here in Costa Rica with a shotgun. Well, first of all, that can't happen, but I get evil when I'm on steroids. Me too. Like bad, like really bad. Almost had the cops called on me one time when I went into a steroidal rage. I've learned now, nitwit, that when they put me on that, I have to say, Xanax, please. Because if you don't, I'll go off the deep end. And I try not to take them because I have really bad reactions to steroids, really bad. I'll break out. I'll start wheezing. I mean, all the stuff that steroids is supposed to help, that actually exacerbates in me. So I don't take them anymore at all. Every now and then I'll do an inhalable steroidal treatment, but not the pill form you're taking. That seems to really mess with me hard. I'll tell the tale of the time that one Easter when I was on steroids, and I was like 25 days in on 30 days of it because it was that bad. And it was the night before Easter. It was 9:30. I was still hemming my daughter's Easter dress. I still had to finish up cooking for the next day, making Easter baskets, and just so many other things. And I got a phone call at 9:30 from the little Mormon missionary boys that I'd been nice to. But I'd told like 50,000 times as nicely as possible I had no interest in becoming a Mormon. They kept calling, they kept coming by. And they caught me at day 20 or 25 on steroids. And I pretty much let them have it. My Plaquenil is finally working without steroids. I'm glad to hear that, but I think it might be messing with my eyes. Hope not. I hope not either. So I have to go in and get Ativan or Xanax or something for my trip. And also, I usually keep some for the worst of my asthma attacks. I'm out. I discovered that guy who ripped off my bottle with my 2 in there. He got the last of them. I can't become a Mormon. I can't give up caffeine. Java, man, me either. I kept explaining that to their sister. Well, you know, you're not supposed to have it. It's bad for you, blah, blah, blah. It's like caffeine power forever. Yeah, Mormons are told to give that. I can't do it. Now, my husband is struggling mightily right now with headaches, and I think it's caffeine withdrawal. I told him the other day, I think it's caffeine withdrawal because he doesn't drink coffee. But up until the other day, he used to drink these lovely Cafe Brit from Cafe Brit coffee, these little square boxes of mocha. He drank 2 or 3 of those a day. And I said, that's full of caffeine. That's full of sugar. Mormons drink caffeine, but tea and coffee are frowned upon. I hope no Mormons come here because everywhere you go here, every place has coffee. And I'm going to let you in on a little Costa Rican secret if you ever visit. They sell the Brit Cafe coffee everywhere here, everywhere. And they charge ridiculous amounts per pound. Man, $12, $16, just ridiculous amounts of money for this stupid thing. Let me tell you something about Costa Rica. All of the coffee on the coffee shelf is good, all of it. And it won't cost you $18 a pound like the Brit Cafe coffee might. My personal favorite is Sanchez Brothers. I really like theirs for some reason. It's got more of a fruity note to it than many types. With all the Russian state-sponsored coordination of steroids and doping, it makes me wonder how the U.S. actually able to beat them in the Olympics. I don't know, Java Man. That's one of the things that I've thought about is performance enhancing everything. What kind of performances are you really sponsoring here? It's not much of an extraordinary performance if the person that's giving the performance is doped to the eyeballs. It's just not. But that's a whole different head for another day. Okay, so that's why I think that Robert Shinn calling Miss Catherine a sandwich is just sandwich, as sad which he is doing to minimize and deflect what she's doing it too, but all this demonization is not doing anybody a damn bit of good. The missionary Mormons are super young and almost everywhere if it isn't illegal to proselytize. In places where it is illegal, they have visitor sitters, like people come into them as a loophole. We could always replace the athlete's body parts with mechanical parts and tamper with their DNA. That could well be what we're looking at one day. That could well be it. Medical ethics have not really kept up with the technology in any way, shape, or form. And I think we're agreed we're going to see some really sad, stupid things coming down the pike. Yeah, the name calling is ridiculous. It is. I don't like her. I don't like him. In fact, part of me kind of wishes there was a mutually mutually assured destructionism going on here. The KGB was involved in helping the Russian Olympic athletes beat doping testing. I'm sure they were. There's all kinds of ways. I've been reading about that recently, how to beat all these drug tests. There are ways. There are ways, not good ways, but they exist. They can get. And I'm not surprised. Just look at the low-level dope heads that managed to fool some of the drug tests throughout the U.S. That was one of the things I did not like about working for the USO when we lived overseas at an Army base. Every now and then, I would get tapped to be an observer when the women soldiers would give their urine samples. I can tell you there is nothing more bizarre that just makes you feel icky. Sitting way involved having a hole in the bathroom wall or substitute samples with clean ones. Yeah. He is problematic, and here's ones. Yeah. He is problematic, and here's why, Prairie. His church, kind of church, is linked with Bethel Redding, and it's linked with Hillsong. He approves of them. He believes the same theology of the demonic and all of that. He's linked with other churches that are extremely problematic. You know, they're all interrelated. And I just, like I said, I have days where I wish I could tie them together and throw them up over a tree branch, give them machetes and say, okay, you guys duke it out. But as for now, I'm just kind of sitting off to the sideline with popcorn, waiting to see what happens. KJ's accusations of waterboarding and human trafficking are way over the top without any evidence presented. I have thoughts on the waterboarding. I think I know where she got that from. I don't know how many of you here have watched The Righteous Gemstones, but that series starts with a traditional pushing you down to baptize you in the water. And to somebody without religious knowledge that likes to think the worst of everybody about everything, that might look quite a bit like waterboarding. I think she probably stumbled across something to do with the way they do baptisms. Oh, that's waterboarding. That's waterboarding. The trafficking, I have no idea. Fill a bottle full of clean urine up the cupboard with, yeah, push a hole in the foil. My friend did that. She's sober now, I think. I super hope. I've also heard of squirt bottles and all sorts of things used to be able to beat that test. I don't know, man. I don't have enough energy to think up ways to do evil and to do wrong. I just don't, I've never had that within me. The human trafficking thing, I don't know where she got that from, but something made her think it was. And you could hear I'm losing my voice. It also helps if you're not too familiar with waterboarding, etc. The person would have been tied down for starters. Exactly. And they would have been literally on a board or platform of something that could have been lowered or could have been water poured on them. Not at all like the baptism thing. So I'm still trying to figure out where that came from. And that's the only thing I can come up with. But then again, I don't have KJ brain, so I don't know. Maybe she got the human trafficking from her brain. Yeah, her gut brain did it. Catherine, you can use that in court. I won't even charge you for it. Just tell them your gut brain made that decision. See how well that goes. Okay, you guys, I am going to go. I'm going to go lay down. My husband is at the beach watching a beach band. I am not there because last Sunday I went. Somebody walked up to me with their little fuzzy dog. I started having an asthma attack and they would not back off. And that's when I made the discovery that most of my asthma drugs were missing from the car. Entirely too much work for an ineffective solution. Yep, that's why I got sober. Exactly. The waterboarding came from a recording of a joke made by someone in the church. Ew. It was about baptism. I knew it was about baptism somehow, but I just couldn't put it together how it was about baptism. I have to tell you guys sometime about hosting baptism. I hosted baptism for like 12 years at our old church. And it went from fun to the most thankless, horrible task on the planet. But that's a story for another day. Okay, you guys, have a wonderful evening. Relax, enjoy. It's Sunday night. It's a good time to just read a book or watch a little of the boob tube, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, a joke is far different than actually doing it. Exactly. Love you guys.